Story 1. I cannot stop thinking. I know everyone thinks, but my brain does not shut off, so I overthink everything. For example, if I text someone, I usually have a response planned for each of the 20 different things they might say. Story 2. I am extraordinarily capable of most things I put my mind to, but my anxiety gets in the way, so nothing is ever as straightforward as it should be. Story 3. Hemochromatosis. Basically, my body cannot process iron, so it just floats in my blood and eventually deposits elsewhere, such as organs and joints. A standard ferritin measurement for iron is about 50, with 100 being high. Women can have levels down to single digits. I have been around 1600. Some people have levels much higher than mine. The only way to reduce iron is to physically remove it. This means I have done weekly phlebotomies to reduce it. Once I get below 100, it will be maintenance levels, and the bloodletting will drop to once a month or every 2 months, but this will continue indefinitely. These phlebotomies are an inconvenience but not annoying. The annoying part is the other symptoms iron overload can cause. The likelihood of mental health issues is dramatically increased, including bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, anxiety, and depression, as well as lack of energy. One of the early warning signs is extreme fatigue. Ernest Hemingway's death is partly attributed to this issue. Sometimes you can tell if people have it because their skin develops a yellow tan. There are also various physical issues that can develop and range in severity. One annoying but not severe issue is my lack of temperature regulation. A nurse once said my blood is poison. I do not believe that is true, but the exaggeration has some merit. For women, it can lead to early menopause. I am lucky that I caught it relatively early. Most people are not tested until they develop symptoms. The likelihood of having it is low but dramatically higher in people from Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and England. Hence the nickname, the Celtic Curse. If you are ancestrally from there, get tested. Story 4. Sometimes I cannot control my anxiety, and I may act strangely or say inappropriate things when I am with people I do not feel comfortable with. Story 5. My social anxiety has been part of my life for as long as I can remember. It has affected me differently throughout my life. As an adult, you would think it would have improved, but no, it is probably even worse than when I was young. I hate it. Luckily, I am strong enough to push past it at times. I try not to let it hold me back, but it does make life a lot harder. Story 6. I had a difficult childhood and teenage years, and I have many regrets. I am also chronically ill. Currently, I am in bed suffering from endometriosis pain and asthma. Story 7. I ask many questions. My personality is overbearing to the point that it is hard for people to get to know who I am. Story 8. I feel like I am thrown under the bus fairly often. At my old job, people always joked about throwing me to the wolves in bad situations. Story 9. I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and it is difficult to access my working memory when I need it. My brain can also decide to go on strike, where it does not want to perform a task even though I know it needs to be done. It can feel like tapping on your simulation to move and do the dishes, but it ignores you and then suddenly performs some push-ups. Story 10. I have many allergies, and on top of that, my skin is extremely sensitive. I also bruise easily. Story 11. Obsessive-compulsive disorder impacts everything I do. Not so much that it is disabling, at least not anymore, but it is still always there, lurking around. Story 12. I randomly lose consciousness and just black out. It never lasts long, but the bruises from falling do. Doctors have no answers yet but want me to take pills. I hate pills. If you cannot explain the issue, I have no need for your solution, doctor. Story 13. I am young and fit enough that at first glance, you would assume I am not in horrible, unbearable pain every day of my life. Story 14. I feel like I do not come off as very approachable and am usually placed in the quiet ones category. I am quiet, but I can talk and be open with the right people who have the right temperament. Story 15. I have very little tolerance and patience for unwise people. The correct answer or proper way of doing something is usually obvious to me, and it is frustrating when others cannot see it or take a long time to understand. On the positive side, I am quick to admit when I am wrong. Story 16. It is exhausting carrying the weight of being right all the time. I try to give others a chance, but they just disappoint. Story 17. I have to live with a profession that was forced onto me. I would probably have chosen it anyway, but I do not like that it was not my choice. Story 18. I am overweight, but my combination of metabolism, autism, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and other factors makes it nearly impossible to lose weight unless I change everything else in my life to make it happen. Story 19. I am not detail-oriented at all. I forget small things easily. I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and my partner has obsessive-compulsive disorder, so it is hard at times. Story 20. Where do I start? Numerous physical issues, ranging from poor eyesight to constant pain. Emotionally dysfunctional. I feel generally fatigued, unenergetic, depressed, and anxious most days. My most annoying characteristic is definitely not finishing what I start. I have suspected I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder for a few years. I don't think a diagnosis helps though. Story 21. There are so many noises that annoy me to the point of extreme anger, and no matter how hard I try, I cannot ignore them. It is exhausting. I carry earplugs with me at all times, but I cannot realistically wear them all the time because of my job and just being a human in society in general. Story 22. I don't feel like I am genuinely good at anything. I work hard and get along with others just fine. There is nothing I do or have done that would make me anyone's first choice at anything, and that hurts, but it is what it is. Story 23. I could discuss the health issues I am dealing with, but those are not truly representative of me. To be honest, my short arms are more of a challenge. It is not about my overall height, which I appreciate, but my arms are shorter than average. This is not medically concerning, just enough to make it difficult to reach for things while sitting in the front seat of a car or accessing items on a high shelf. I often find myself frustrated with my short arms. It means I have to work twice as hard to touch my toes. Story 24. My come here / get away from me meter is broken. I don't really know how to explain it. I'm too friendly, happy, silly, and flirty in a toddler innocent way. But when my shackles go up, I get goosebumps and my stomach drops out. Wild-eyed, I'm done. There is no subtlety. Isin savenge. It's we have to get the hell out of here. Story 25. Some part of my body is always in pain. Sometimes it is my knees, sometimes it is my hips. Most of the time it is my stomach because of lactose intolerance and anxiety-induced irritable bowel syndrome. I am constantly anxious. Story 26. Having to plan and prepare endlessly for every situation outside of your home due to low mobility from using a cumbersome steel wheelchair. I have cerebral palsy and use a wheelchair. Other than that, I can't really complain. Story 27. I truly believe that most people do not actually like me and just placate me. I never reach out to people, especially if a year or more has gone by without talking in depth with them, even though I really want to know how they are doing. I feel like I would be intruding on their life, so I do not, and it makes me unreasonably sad all the time. Story 28. I have apraxia, so I have a lot of difficulty articulating what I want to say. It feels like the connections from my brain to my mouth are a jumbled mess, and I have to sort through every cable to figure out how to get the words out. It is frustrating when I am talking to someone and need to take a few moments to find the words, especially when I need to answer an immediate question or there is an urgency to address a problem. Story 29. I have 2 chronic illnesses. One of them is colonic inertia. My digestive tract moves so slowly that I use the bathroom maybe once a week if I am lucky. My stomach is so bloated that I do not know my true waistline. I have only ever known bloat. Story 30. Overthinking. Feeling like nobody wants me around no matter who I am with. Leaving a room full of the closest people to me and thinking they do not even like me. Yes, it is fun. Story 31. Butterfly effect. I am often the straw that breaks the donkey's back. Someone offers me lunch and I am not hungry. They run off crying. I have said no harsh word, yet you are devastated. A single snowflake triggers an avalanche, so I prefer to be alone. Story 32. I get annoyed when something new gets damaged and wish I were not so caught up on that. For instance, a scratch or dent on a new appliance. Story 33. All the fears. I blame them on growing up gay and hiding everything, which did not help because I was sure everyone could see I was somehow weird or did not know how to live. Coming out was awesome, of course, but the fears linger. Therapy helps. Story 34. Ignoring all the obvious issues such as physical disability and trauma, I have real trouble with tasks that do not have sufficient urgency. If I have to do something immediately, I will be there and complete the task to the best of my ability regardless of what is required. However, if it is self-led and more relaxed, I find it difficult to focus. Story 35. I drive people crazy by being curious, not nosy. I am obsessively curious about things almost no one else cares about but seem interesting and somewhat important to me. Story 36. I have the utmost respect for those who I know are smarter than me, but I cannot tolerate someone less intelligent telling me what to do. I listen to retired teachers and professors all the time while doing my hobby, but when someone with nothing to show tries to tell me how to do things, I get very sarcastic and annoyed. I give everyone a fair chance to prove their intelligence, but when they fail, I am considered the asshole. Story 37. I have a hard time conforming and doing things I do not want to do. I am a free spirit, but sometimes I wish I could just go along like everyone else, have jobs I do not like, and do things I do not want to do for the sake of stability. Story 38. I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I hate that I can forget so easily and be distracted by something, especially if it is really important. I live with it daily and sometimes wonder why someone likes or loves me the way I am. I cannot stand myself at all when I forget. Story 39. Nearly crippling anxiety and imposter syndrome. I have spent my entire life learning to be very good at a wide array of skills just as something I thought would be fun and useful to learn. However, I seem to be thinking 100 miles an hour while everybody else is in the bicycle lane. Whenever I start to help someone do something I know how to do, or even just lie awake at night, I am constantly bombarded by the fear that someone is going to point out me, specifically as some sort of fraud or charlatan. I am the person who will stop on the side of the road to help a stranger fix a tire, water your plants and feed your cat, teach you how to fish or garden or perform semi-skilled carpentry. And I will also make sure that nobody is stealthily around your house while you are out of town. That is basically my entire purpose. I try to help and watch out for other people. Helping others makes me forget to worry about myself. But deep inside, I am always afraid that someone will get mad and call me a fraud in public, even if there is no reason or justification. I worry so much about how others may judge me that I am constantly watching them. The irony is that I do not really judge anybody else unless they are a total rude person. Because when you suffer from this much anxiety, you really can only think about yourself and are looking for an outlet or a light at the end of the dark tunnel you are in. Everything sets you off, but it's hard to get angry at anybody when you are so internally focused on your own pain. As one of my favorite authors, Matthew Woodring Stover, quotes in his Acts of Cain series, "Head down, inch toward daylight. As long as you know it's just a tunnel, you can emerge out the other end like Andy Dufresne in Shawshank Redemption, who quietly was kind to everyone for years but one day knew he was ready. He crawled through a literal river of waste for a couple hundred meters, emerged into the rain and freshwater stream, and knew he was free." Story 40. I can't just stop. I know that I realistically should be proud of myself, proud of how much I have accomplished even with my disabilities like my autism. But I still can't shake all the years of knowing I was wrong, or at least feeling that everything about me was wrong, that I am still some kind of freak. Story 41. On one hand, I could not care less about most things, feeling too apathetic to do much. On the other hand, I care deeply about specific things and obsessively focus on them. Story 42. Inability to focus unless something interests me. I have to force myself to focus on things if they are boring. Also, time blindness is difficult. Story 43. Feeling insecure and inferior to most people. Missing out on many experiences my friends and peers had because of shyness and anxiety. Story 44. Among other things, it's imposter syndrome to the point where I fear I don't have imposter syndrome because people with imposter syndrome suffer or struggle more. I argue with myself all the time and have one side that tries to be self-righteous while the other does its best to invalidate me and my every experience. It sucks, kind of. Story 45. I think about my dramatics and how unpleasant I can get. My partner says I never accept help or admit when I need something. Story 46. My love language is physical touch. However, I will not let just anyone touch me. If we become affectionate, I tend to catch feelings too intensely. I would rather be alone, but I still need to be touched. So yes. Story 47. I have a mental disability, and unfortunately, my state does not accommodate people like me well. I usually have a harder time than others with tasks and memory, and people treat me as if I am slow instead of a normal person or give me attitude. Every day is a struggle at work. Since I am not able to get a college degree, I am stuck with low pay and poor working conditions. My sister graduated this year with a degree, while I will never have that opportunity. The system does not adequately support people who are mentally disabled or different. Story 48. The way my upper stomach pouch is bigger than my lower stomach pouch. At my thinnest, I actually had a flat lower abdomen and a small upper stomach pouch. I called it my wearable proof that life is unfair. Story 49. It would be easier to ask what part of me is not annoying to me. The answer is not found. Story 50. I have the worst possible genetics when it comes to athleticism. I have to work extremely hard to accomplish physical fitness tasks that most people can do easily. Story 51. The constant anxiety and frustration all the time for no discernible reason. Contrary to popular belief, I do not like feeling this way. Story 52. Noun. The tendency to give up trying to talk about an experience because people are unable to relate to it, whether through envy, pity, or mere foreignness, which allows it to drift away from the rest of your story until it feels out of place, almost mythical, wandering restlessly in the fog, no longer even looking for a place to land. The few people and places I get to express the experiences with that get it don't happen infrequently. And this assumption that having overcome difficult challenges in life means I just walk around like nothing bothers me. Story 53. Everyone hates me to the point of aggression at first sight. I gave up trying to understand why, but it hurts so much. Story 54. How introverted I can be. I am just so exhausted most of the time that I have no energy to put into social conversations with people, especially with people I really do not want to talk to. Takes the energy right out of me. Story 55. I have multiple personalities and I hear voices. I also have to tell people that, which is really annoying. Story 56. My brain. There are about 10 voices in my head. One of them is berating me. One of them is telling the one berating me to be quiet. One of them is stuck in a daydream trying to finish the story but never does. One of them is anxious about things that never have and never will happen. One of them is repeating part of a song over and over again. This goes on 24/7. Story 57. I am a very slow person. I do not mean that I am literally slow, but I have a difficult time processing information and am prone to making a lot of mistakes when it comes to new things. This makes activities like learning to drive or starting a new job a very long and grueling process for me. Story 58. The lack of self-motivation to do anything. When someone is coming over, I clean everything, do the dishes, and do the laundry. When I am going to work, I prepare food and organize things. When it is just me, myself, and I do nothing for days. Story 59. I usually do not like attending events such as social gatherings or celebrations. This applies to both family and friends. I always try to make an excuse to avoid going. It is not that I dislike people, I just do not feel like going. I prefer to be at home and comfortable. I do not enjoy being invited to events. I wish I were more excited about these occasions. Story 60. I cannot picture things in my head. If you tell me to close my eyes and imagine an apple, I just see black. I only have an internal monologue. I am a creative person, so it is very annoying to have an idea for a project but not know how it will turn out. Story 61. Depression and anxiety, and the fact that I am extremely boring and awkward, so I have almost no one who would notice if I just disappeared. Story 62. I am far more successful than my siblings. so they resent me and blame me for all of their shortcomings. Story 63. 99% of the time, I can see and consider all sides of almost any issue, whether personal, work-related, or involving friends. This often drives people nuts. Story 64. I have bipolar 2 disorder and no medication, so I constantly want to hurt myself, and sometimes I do. These issues are mostly related to my mental health. I am also transgender, so half of my family avoids me. Story 65. Well, a lot of things, but I would not trade it for the world. My intelligence, for one, is quite the boon in some situations but a massive hindrance in others. My entire life I have felt disconnected from my peers due to my high intelligence quotient. Story 66. I do not produce any testosterone anymore. I was a college football player and rugby player into my mid-30s. I have been active my whole life, but after a brain tumor damaged my pituitary gland at 35, I now lack the energy I once had. I apply a testosterone gel every morning to help, but it is not the same. It also left me legally blind. Story 67. My attention deficit hyperactivity disorder makes me feel like I am unreliable to the people in my life. I try really hard, but I can never remember everything. Story 68. I am really bad at relationships, but I do not like being single. I am very upfront about it, but people never take it seriously. Story 69. Being so critical helps me when questioning everything around me, but there are times, such as social settings, when I wish I could disable the critical mode in my brain. Story 70. Insomnia, specifically waking up early almost every day. Between that and work, I am so tired and burned out on my days off that I have no energy to talk to people. As a result, I come across as bored and uninterested, even though I do not mean to. Story 71. I still have not found the motivation to get a job because of my immense fear from growing up seeing adults dragging their feet saying to me, "Once you get a job, your life is over. Little buddy, enjoy your time while it lasts." Story 72. I have to pick one. Can't answer a question about myself like, "What are your hobbies?" or "What's your favorite?" Not because I am boring, but because I cannot remember. Waiting mode. Looking for love in all the wrong places. Overstimulated. Wanting affection at inappropriate times. Forgetting to be normal or having to mask all the time. Let me eat my soup from the can with the plastic spoon and stop staring. Story 73. I cannot have close friendships because I get too invested, and then it becomes toxic to my mental health. I feel forever alone. Story 74. I have this "do not approach me" face naturally. It is a bit annoying when people do not approach, and it is also annoying when they actually do. Never mind. Story 75. I want to be social with the people around me, but I have difficulty understanding them properly. I cannot understand empathy, social norms, or social cues, and I have not yet been able to connect deeply with anyone. Story 76. I am a caring person and a good listener. This often leads to becoming an unpaid therapist in almost every female relationship I have had. I have spent a lot of money on therapy trying to learn how to be less nice and less caring. Can't we just play a game or something? No, Brenda, I do not want to hear about your problems and your childhood trauma. I am still working through my own. Story 77. I love spending money, but I have a hard time being persistent in activities. I am very ambitious, but I drop my projects quickly if I do not succeed immediately, such as with crocheting, or obtain satisfaction quickly enough, such as when studying. Story 78. I am either the life of the party or the shyest person in the room. I am also loyal to a fault, which sometimes leads to being taken advantage of. Story 79. I constantly make self-deprecating jokes, and it makes people uncomfortable. I do not think before I make a joke, but I spend too much time overthinking everything else. Story 80. I am a woman who is 6 feet 2 inches tall, and clothes do not fit me. Men are often strange about my height. The world seems made for shorter people, and I have back problems. Story 81. Most of my family and friends come to me for solutions about almost anything. I am not an expert on anything. I just know how to use Google. Story 82. I am self-destructive but also self-aware. So I watch myself make terrible decisions and do nothing about it. Story 83. I am a writer. If I can get myself to sit down and write, it is actually really good content. However, I cannot motivate myself to sit and write. Story 84. My attention deficit hyperactivity disorder causes my brain to turn conversations into white noise, even when it is something important, despite medications and therapy. This leads to many arguments in my love life. Story 85. My brain, through a combination of trauma and my attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and potential autism spectrum disorder, will never get to live a life where my brain just works, and it is really annoying. Almost everything is more difficult for what appears to be no discernible reason to those around me. Story 86. My brain never shuts up. I will be trying to sleep, and suddenly I am reliving a cringeworthy conversation from 7 years ago or overthinking a text I have not even sent yet. It is exhausting being the main character and the overanalyzer at the same time. Story 87. I have a type of autism that means if there is even a single grammar mistake in a sentence, I simply do not understand what is being said until I read it at least twice. It is frustrating and I dislike it. It is also why I sometimes feel inadequate because everyone else seems to understand informal language instantly, and I have to reread repeatedly, for example. Story 88. A lot of things. I am very stubborn. If I decide to finish a task, I have to finish it. If I am unable to do that for some reason, it annoys me and makes me agitated, angry, and upset. It also requires great effort for me to lie. I am not a good liar. I am very lazy when I do not have anything important to do, but when I have something important, I will work myself to exhaustion. I have anxiety issues too. I cannot stop thinking. My brain does not shut up. Story 89. My medications make me really sleepy, so I guess falling asleep mid-afternoon and waking up at 2 a.m. and being able to sleep for the rest of the night. If there was a sleeping competition for my country, I would enter. I think I could at least win a bronze medal. Story 90. None of my interests, skills, or abilities can be applied to a good-paying job. I will work forever doing menial jobs because I am just not smart enough for anything better. Story 91. I have bad short-term memory, but I have really good long-term memory. I can't remember where I placed my phone, but I can still remember doing something embarrassing that may seem small to others, but is incredibly embarrassing for me. Story 92. My post-traumatic stress disorder trigger is exhaustion and discomfort from domestic slavery and what the psychologists called actual torture. Do you have any idea how hard it is to do literally anything with those triggers? Story 93. My inner optimist is always there. Even in the bleakest moments, singing, "The sun will come out tomorrow." Story 94. I've looked like a grown man since 6th grade. I remember one day when school was starting, and I was walking into the school with a few friends. The security guard stopped me and asked what I was doing. I looked at him confused and said, going to class? He didn't believe I was a student and asked to see my identification. I gave it to him. He spent what felt like 5 minutes looking at the identification and then at me. Finally, he sighed, handed me my identification back, and said, "I'm really sorry, man," before walking off. Luckily, I grew into it all, but it was difficult being bald with a beard in 6th grade. Story 95. My reputation is damaged because of something that happened 3 years ago, which I had nothing to do with. I strongly dislike my current friends, but have no one else. Story 96. I'm loud. Just a loud talker. I can't even whisper sometimes. It bums me out because people hate me for it. Story 97. I do tasks at work that I really like and enjoy, but others do not understand the processes and think I am just having a good time. They expect me to do even more. Story 98. Being addicted to cigarettes frustrates me. No matter what I try, I always end up smoking again, even after months of abstinence. Story 99. Whenever I start to feel unexpected emotions, I become anxious that I will misbehave, start to overthink, become a burden, act self-destructively, and spiral down into an absolute mess. It is better if everything stays as it is. Story 100. I will never have a healthy perception of women and, in turn, a healthy relationship. My expectations are authoritarian, and ultimately, I do not want any woman to be with a person like me. That is why I have never tried to date. It is unhealthy, and no one should go through such an experience. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.